The latest survey results of the Nedbank Small Business Index indicate that the South African small businesses were slightly more optimistic in the third quarter of the year, attributed to part increased levels of support from the private sector. But what impact does this have on our SMEs? With us is economist from Nedbank, Busi Radebe, to give more clarity. Welcome, Busi, to the Zone.
Thanks for having me. Yes, Busi, welcome to the Zone. Now, Busi, with these results released by Nedbank, what exactly does it mean for SMEs?
It's just a confidence barometer. And I think it goes together with what's happening with economic growth. The moment you see growth in the economy doing well, you can actually see small businesses doing well. Okay. So you can see in the first quarter we had a big downshift in what was going on with the index. In the second quarter, the economy actually improved a bit from that negative result in the first quarter, so you saw that confidence. Now we know that GDP is not out for the third quarter, but this can tell us more or less what's going to happen with growth. We know it's going to be marginally better because small businesses feel that things are going to be marginally better. If you look at the numbers for the third quarter, it's not statistically significant, so it means the economy is still struggling underneath, but small businesses think they're going to do marginally better in this particular, they've done marginally better in this particular quarter. And if you look at growth just in general, it means for the rest of the year, things are going to start looking slightly up. So you can just say what's happening with growth is also happening with a small business, and you expect that to happen because as people spend in the economy and as we spend slightly more in the economy, we can see that sort of knock-on effect going to the small business, and they're doing slightly better, and that's what we've actually seen in the third quarter.
Now, when we talk about confidence levels with SMEs, what exactly do we mean? And in practical terms, if I'm a business owner, does this mean that I can now produce more? Can I get more stock? Should I expand more in my business? When you say it's getting better for me, how so?
I mean, it's getting slightly better for you, yes. So it's not like it's shooting out the lights. Okay. I mean, if you look at the index itself, it's actually that you look at it out of 100, okay, and we're still below that 50. So things are going slightly better, but it's sort of still below that 50-point mark. So it means, yes, you can probably slightly go out there, but you can't really hugely increase capacity. So you again have to look at growth and say, what's happening growth-wise? So we know there's excess capacity in the economy because all of a sudden, say in the first quarter or whatever, a very good quarter last year perhaps, you were making 5 cars, you're a car guy.
Yes.
And you were making 5 cars, and we know now slightly demand has come down slightly, so now you're only making 4 cars. But your factory can still make those 5 cars. So there is still that capacity in the economy because you're only making 4 now. So if you get to that place where the economy is doing that great that you're doing 5 cars now, and you see, oops, I need to make a 6th car, then I'm going to expand capacity. So things are going slightly better, but there's still that I can still make an extra car. So it doesn't mean it's wonderful. It means capacity is still there. So I need the economy to go full steam ahead before I actually add on another bay to make a 6th car.
So what is the rising cost on with the rising of the cost? What is it impact? What impact does it have on small businesses?
I mean, you can look at a whole host of things that small businesses are worried with cost-wise. One of the big things there is obviously labor. So that is something to look at. I mean, you saw yesterday that we had the Reserve Bank governor actually even mentioned it again in his interest rate speech, that labor is an issue over there. But the one other thing I would have thought was going to be a major issue was the cost of obtaining finance. And we've seen that that is not a major issue. I think for 44% of small businesses out there, it's only a medium issue. So it's not a big issue. So interest rates are actually still pretty low, even though we did have that sort of 25 basis points up in interest rates, but that doesn't seem to be a drag. They're still pretty low. If you look at debt service costs, still pretty low. But small businesses aren't going out there and taking, business in general aren't going out there and taking loans and spending a whole lot of money because of that excess capacity. So this little money that I've got at the moment, I'll use that first before I go to the bank and say, okay, I want to borrow money. And we know now capacity is still in the economy, so I'm not going to actually go to the bank and increase my costs for a whole lot of things. But the big one, obviously, is labor.
So we are saying that business owners shouldn't go into a panic and start looking for loans. They should really try and maximize what they've got within.
I mean, I don't think they'll go into panic at all to go look for a loan. I wouldn't if I still had that capacity in my factory. So I was a factory owner. I wouldn't go out there and look for loans in general. But we know also the economy is, yes, we did slightly better. I think we sort of had a sort of growth going down by 0.6% in the first quarter and then an increase to 0.6% in the second quarter. It's not wonderful. Okay. It's not something like the economy is growing at 5% and we need to go out there and get loans and go crazy. There is nothing like that at the moment, unless you're like in a booming sector that I can't think of at the moment. But if you were in a booming sector, yes, you could go out there if you filled up your capacity, but at the moment it doesn't look that way.
So we'll see how are economic concerns impacting on capex plans by small businesses?
I mean, it's a capacity thing, like I've said again. I mean, if you look at something like the Bureau of Economic Research has this index that shows more or less business confidence in general in the economy. And you can see how that has actually struggled going along. But it doesn't only look at small businesses, but just business in general. And it's a slight barometer for what's going to happen to capital expenditure, gross fixed capital formation in the economy. If we see that number going way above the 50 mark, we know, okay, there's confidence that business in general has in the economy, and they're going to start now building that factory and doing that type of thing. And we haven't seen that index move sharply up. So what's happening to the economy, obviously we know now, consumers aren't doing that well. We've seen a slowdown in consumer spending throughout sort of the year. So we know they're not going to the shops to go buy stuff. So we know confidence is negatively impacted over there. When you look at just even government contracts coming through, I mean, one of the things in the survey that we look at is what kind of support are you receiving from government? And yes, it did improve in the third quarter, but out of 10, it was 2.3.
Wow.
So from 2 to 2.3 is not, yes, it improved, but it's not, it's,
much
you know,
of a
am I
shift.
getting those contracts? Am I, so whatever's happening in the economy, just with the consumer, just what's happening just with business in general, if I'm getting government contracts, that's all going to impact on how I feel as a small business, and currently it's not that great.
Busi, lastly, any words of advice to our SME owners?
I mean, it's obviously the one thing I always say is you must know what's going on in the economy in general.
Yeah.
Because you won't want to sort of, if I know that the consumer's not doing that well, I'm not going to want to expand sort of my capacity in a huge way. I want to actually just put my finger on that and say, is this, what is going on here? I want to know slightly better there. But the other thing is, it's just an educational thing in general. There is help out there for small businesses. I mean, we've got Nedbank Simply Biz out there. You can go on the website and you can listen to podcasts and things like that, and just familiarize yourself with what's going on with small business, what's going on with the economy in general, so you know what your next move is. And there are lots of little educational courses that you actually can go to on the website. So just have a look at that and try to just familiarize yourself with what's actually out there to help small business.
So it's about equipping yourself with all the
Absolutely.
information that you need.
Yeah.
Busi, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you on SME Zone, and all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you.
That's all we have time for this week. Till next week we meet again. Goodbye.